Social anxiety, once perhaps dismissed as mere shyness or reserved temperament, has emerged as one of the most pervasive mental health challenges of the modern era. Far exceeding simple nerves, social anxiety disorder (SAD) is characterized by an intense, persistent fear of social or performance situations in which an individual is exposed to unfamiliar people or possible scrutiny by others. This fear often leads to avoidance behavior, significantly interfering with an individual's daily life, relationships, and professional functioning. While anxiety disorders have always been a part of the human experience, contemporary research and clinical evidence strongly suggest a concerning increase in the prevalence and severity of social anxiety across populations, particularly among adolescents and young adults. This essay will explore the complex nature of social anxiety and meticulously analyze the converging societal, technological, and environmental factors that fuel its current, alarming rise. Defining the social spotlight before dissecting its increase, it is crucial to understand social anxiety as a distinct clinical entity. It is not simply being an introvert or having a bad day. SAD involves an irrational and excessive fear that one will act in a way or show anxiety symptoms that will be humiliating or embarrassing. The sufferer perceives the social spotlight to be perpetually fixed on them, anticipating negative judgment, rejection, or scrutiny with almost certainty. Physiologically, this can manifest as heart palpitations, sweating, trembling, or panic attacks in social settings. The core driver is an overwhelming fear of negative evaluation, leading to a vicious cycle. Anticipating anxiety causes anxiety, which then confirms the individual's belief that they are fundamentally flawed in social interactions. This cycle is then amplified by the external pressures of modern life. The digital panopticon, social media and the comparison culture. The most significant and frequently cited contributor to the rising rates of social anxiety is the ubiquitous presence of social media and digital technology. These platforms, while connecting the world, have simultaneously created an unprecedented comparison culture, a digital panopticon where every life is curated, polished, and subjected to instant, often harsh, public scrutiny. Firstly, social media introduces the concept of the highlight reel. Users are constantly bombarded with idealized versions of their peers' lives, perfect vacations, successful careers, flawless appearances, and vibrant social circles. This relentless exposure to unattainable standards fosters feelings of inadequacy and fear of missing out (FOMO), particularly among the socially anxious who already struggle with negative self-evaluation. The internal comparison leads to the external fear. If my life isn't as perfect as theirs online, what will they think of me in person? Secondly, the nature of digital communication itself can atrophy essential in-person social skills. Relying on texts, emojis, and highly edited posts allows individuals to avoid the messy, unpredictable nuances of face-to-face interaction, reading body language, handling awkward pauses, and navigating real-time conflict. When forced into real-world social settings, a person accustomed to the control of a screen is often left feeling socially incompetent and overwhelmed, increasing their likelihood of avoidance and subsequent anxiety. The more time spent in the controlled digital sphere, the less resilient the individual becomes to the spontaneity and unpredictability of genuine human connection. Thirdly, the threat of cyberbullying and public shaming is a constant, looming danger in the digital age. A single embarrassing moment, a regrettable post, or an unflattering photo can be instantly captured, shared, and remain permanently archived online, subjected to the judgment of thousands. This hyper-awareness of potential public humiliation, a core fear of SAD, is heightened by the permanence and scope of the internet, making public interaction an even greater psychological risk. The aftermath of global disruption, the COVID-19 pandemic. The unprecedented global lockdowns and social isolation caused by the COVID-19 pandemic represent a significant, acute environmental factor contributing to the rise in social anxiety. For many, particularly children and adolescents whose social brains were in critical developmental phases, the pandemic-enforced isolation resulted in a social skill deficit. Extended periods of remote learning and working limited opportunities for casual, low-stakes social practice, the kind of daily interactions that build social resilience and confidence. When the world began to reopen, many felt a profound sense of déjà vu to the anxieties of childhood shyness, struggling to reacclimate to in-person settings, office environments, and crowded public spaces. This period of disruption essentially created a large-scale recalibration of social tolerance, leading to a measurable spike in social anxiety symptoms, even in those who had never previously met the diagnostic criteria for SAD. Societal pressures and the cult of performance beyond technology and global events, deeper shifts in modern societal values and expectations are also culpable. Contemporary Western society places an immense and often unforgiving value on individual performance, success, and outward projection of competence. Academic and professional pressure. The fierce competition for educational placement and desirable jobs means that failure is often viewed as catastrophic. Public speaking, networking, high-stakes interviews, and group presentations, all common anxiety triggers, are no longer optional but are critical gatekeepers to a successful future. This high-pressure environment transforms typical performance anxiety into a chronic, debilitating social fear, as the stakes of negative evaluation feel overwhelmingly high. The rise of individualism, a growing cultural emphasis on independence and self-reliance, particularly in individualistic societies, can inadvertently undermine communal support. When the narrative promotes self-made success, it can lead to increased feelings of isolation and disconnection when challenges arise. The socially anxious person, already feeling isolated, may hesitate to seek help for fear of appearing weak or dependent, thus compounding their anxiety. Economic and global uncertainty. Broader societal stressors, such as economic volatility, political polarization, and the palpable fear of global issues like the climate crisis, create a background hum of anxiety that makes individuals more psychologically vulnerable. This pervasive uncertainty lowers the threshold for stress, making the immediate, personal threat of social judgment feel all the more intense and unmanageable. Conclusion: the rising tide of social anxiety in the 21st century is not the product of a single cause, but a complex, multifaceted interplay of rapidly evolving societal dynamics and technological saturation. The digital age, while offering connectivity, has simultaneously intensified the fear of negative evaluation by creating a relentless comparison culture and an unforgiving panopticon of public scrutiny. This psychological vulnerability was then abruptly exacerbated by the necessary, but socially stunting isolation of the global pandemic. Coupled with high-stakes societal pressures for constant performance and success, the modern world has cultivated a perfect storm for the widespread development and amplification of social anxiety. Addressing this epidemic requires a multi-pronged approach that moves beyond individual treatment and tackles the systemic issues. This includes fostering digital literacy and a healthier relationship with social media, prioritizing mental health and social-emotional learning in educational settings, and consciously cultivating spaces for genuine, low-stakes, in-person human connection. Until society mitigates the overwhelming pressures of the digital spotlight and rebalances the value placed on authentic connection over curated performance, the shadow of social anxiety will continue to lengthen across the global population. The challenge of our time is to learn how to exist and connect authentically in a world that increasingly demands an impossible, curated perfection.